All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in to Strong Life Podcast. I'm here with my friend Jim. Jim is Division I strength coach, Kennesaw State, and we met through some of the hammer strength clinics. I think we met maybe up at Lehigh. You were presenting up there at the time. You were working at the Citadel, which is the military academy down in South Carolina, and you've got a lot of cool stuff going on. I mean, I always loved what you were doing, but the one thing that fired me up the most was you mentioned something like when you guys started at Kennesaw State. I believe, is this the first time they had a football program? Or
Yeah, they had talked about it for like decades apparently, but they finally approved it. Team got on campus in fall of 14.
Yep.
And we played our first full season. We just finished it up, so fall of 15 was our first full year.
Yes. So going in, I remember you mentioned something. I think I was listening to our friend Ron interviewing you on Iron Game Chalk Talk, and you said, like, we just did, you had a better quote than what I'm going to say, but it was like, we just did the basics, kind of like committed to excellence. We didn't do anything fancy. So what was that quote? Do you remember what it was?
We tried to do the simple things savagely well.
Yes, I loved it. I love that so much because that's just what we stand for. The fight for the basics versus getting to the fancy stuff. Every time I hear an experienced strength coach, one that's really, truly delivering results, they're always coming back to saying things of that nature or saying stuff like, there are no new exercises. We're just finding better ways to organize stuff. So you've got a unique background, different than a lot of the people I've interviewed before. So you went to D3 College, Norwich University up in Vermont, which one of our wrestlers just visited, and I met one of the guys that wrestled there. He's a coach up in Vermont when I was up there. Very tough guy. So you went to a military academy, and I understand, like, you're up in Vermont. It was a pretty remote area where that school is, right?
Yeah, we're in a valley. There's one stoplight, and most of the time it's just blinking. It snows a lot. I think I saw like 36 inches fall in like 18 hours my sophomore year. Not a whole hell of a lot going on, but a great experience. You know, the military thing called to me because I thought I wanted to go into the service. I wasn't sure, so that gave me the opportunity to pursue it while still getting a degree. And the structure was important to me because, to be perfectly honest, I didn't love school. And I needed something that was going to keep me on track. Not that I was a big troublemaker, but I knew I wasn't going to maximize myself if I was just living a normal lifestyle. So being an athlete and being in the Corps really helped me keep my head on straight, have a focused daily schedule, and help me succeed in college.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I haven't run into too many kids nowadays that are looking to go, to these military academies. Those that do, the few that I know that have, they go on to be very successful, and it seems like what they just instill in you, you just carry it. So where did you grow up? What state did you grow up in for high?
Massachusetts. I grew up in a small town just south of Worcester in Massachusetts.
Okay, and then you were a two-sport athlete up at Norwich, which is also unique. Most athletes, even by the time they get to middle school, are no longer into sports. They're somehow, some way, either pushed or told that you got to do one sport, or nowadays they've got football in the fall, and then they find a way to do football in the spring. There's definitely baseballs like that, but you were football and baseball.
Yep.
What did you pick up from doing two sports, and what are your thoughts on being a multi-sport athlete even in the later years in high school, like an upperclassman in high school? You're doing it in college. What's the benefit, and maybe what's the downside?
Well, I'll start with the downside. There's not many downsides. Like, the one thing that I wish that I had done was, what baseball did was it kind of pulled me away from training for football. So, I'm an energetic guy, so I lifted with the team for football during baseball season. But I didn't if it was a game day. I missed some stuff because of road trips. So I was as committed to football off-season training as I could be, but that wasn't all in. So when you get to college, you kind of got to make a decision if you're going to be all in or not. So not being able to be 100% all in all the time, that might have taken away from some of the results from my training. But it still wasn't a regret because in that whole off-season, I'm training, but I'm doing different stuff and finding different ways to tax my body as opposed to the same thing over and over and over again. and it kind of gives you, in a way, an escape, so you're not just being overburdened by the same topic over and over and over again. Now, the statistic that I heard that was just baffling to me, that I thought was awesome, that parents need to hear, is that the 2014 National Championship Ohio State Buckeyes for football, 14 or 15, whatever, 85% of that roster played multiple sports in high school. 85% of the national championship team played multiple sports in high school. So to tell me that you need to specialize, it's garbage, because Iowa this year, Iowa football had a monster year, and they had like a ridiculous amount of their real good players run track and throw and track and field. It gives you a chance to get off that type of your body. It gives you a chance to compete in another way, so you don't get burned out.
Yep.
It creates an entirely separate skill set, and we know from motor development that the more skills you learn, the better you are at learning even more skills. So by acquiring the ability to throw the shot put, not only are you creating massive total body explosive power, you're also teaching yourself a new skill, which makes the next one you're trying to learn that much more achievable. So yeah, by doing a lot of different things, you might not be able to go all out. So at some point you got to decide, but at some point, I'm talking about like college.
Yeah.
There's no reason you can't be a multi-sport athlete in high school and still achieve on whatever field or court you're trying to play.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The same year that Ohio State won the Nationals in football, their wrestling team also won Nationals. So it was a hell of a year for them. I'd love to hear like what kind of background they had, and I guarantee that a lot of their wrestlers were also doing multi-sport, or if they weren't multi-sport out of wrestling, they were doing a different style. They were doing freestyle. They were doing Greco. They were experiencing different things. There have been, I look back to when I was in my early years of coaching, there was a couple real high-level guys going to D1 for these things, like Antonio Garay, who's in the NFL. He went to Boston College. He played football and he wrestled, and then I think by sophomore, junior year, he stopped. And then I know Darian Caldwell from Jersey went to, I think, UNC or NC State. His true love was football, and he was a 3-time state champ. So he walked on to the football team, because I think now at the D1 level, I'm not sure if it's that way with you guys, but they don't, I don't know if they don't allow or they don't give 2 scholarships if you're going to do 2 sports. They kind of tell you.
I don't believe you can get scholarship money from both sides.
Right.
And at the high level, you're still, even if they give you half, there's still a counter. You still count towards their scholarship limit, even if you only have partial.
Yeah.
You still count as one of the. So it becomes, once you get to the high levels, so say you're playing D1 ball, you're wrestling D1, it becomes really difficult to really compete at 2 different sports. A, the season
at that level. Yeah.
And B, the training you're doing with your team is such a trust thing. There's such a camaraderie thing, and there are specifics. And when you wrestle D1, when you play D1 football, your body takes such a beating, you might not be able to go and really maximize yourself in another arena. So at that point, figuring out what you want to do when you're 18, 19 years old, that's okay.
Yep.
When you're 14, ain't nothing wrong with playing football, then going to wrestling, and then going to baseball, and then whatever you want to do in the summer, figure it out and come back to it again. Just makes you a better athlete, man. I really believe that. Yeah,
in many ways. With, you being Kennesaw State, first time ever program, they bring you in. And I remember, I think it was during one of your interviews or reading somewhere that the first thing you did with the guys was the first few days was just running. You didn't let them touch the weights. What are some of the things that the mindset going in that you felt was going to be critical to organize that program and maximize it? And why did you do the running for the first few days? What was the philosophy behind that?
Well, Coach, it wasn't just the first few days, it was the first 2 weeks.
Nice.
And the whole coaching staff was out there, me, my strength staff, all of our interns, and we all know how important running is, but we all know it's terrible. Nobody wants to run, and when you get pushed running, you make the decision if you really want to be a part of something. And if you go out there and you care, you'll do anything.
Yep.
But if you don't really care, then running is going to run you right out of the program. And that's important to figure out who wants to stay, who wants to go.
Right.
And we had no clue what we were getting. We knew the kids that we recruited to an extent, but we really didn't know. We couldn't trust that they had trained all summer.
Yes.
Trust that they had trained all winter.
I've heard this a lot.
Yeah, like you get kids who, I mean, this is bad, but kids sign their letter of intent in February to be a D1 scholarship athlete, and they don't. Now they think like, hey, I'm good. And a lot of kids don't touch a weight. They don't run until they show up for summer training.
Yeah.
So I'm not bringing that kid who's completely with no general physical preparation. I'm not putting him with a bar on his back and expecting him to be able to produce, especially at the tempo that we want to train at. We can't train the way we want to train until you get some level of conditioning underneath you. So we put him on the field, put him through a lot of tough stuff. We progressed it appropriately, knowing that a lot of the guys probably hadn't done anything.
Yep.
We didn't just put him in. Yeah, it was hard, but it was hard for the time. And then it progressively got harder. And then by the end of those 2 weeks, had they done what we did day one, they would have laughed at it.
Yes.
Day one, it was miserable because we didn't want to kill anybody. We just wanted to push them. But that installed the mindset, that installed the discipline, it installed the standard of execution, excellence that we expect here. And you don't always get that from a weight room standpoint when sometimes you got to slow things down for safety.
Yep.
You don't always have to slow things down like crazy when you're running a half gas there. Like, run your ass off. Let's go.
Yeah.
Ride or die.
There's a lot to be said about building the mindset before they kind of earn the right to touch the weights. And I think people will be shocked if they don't have this experience with you saying, hey, some kid signs his letter of intent or he signs full commitment. He's coming to the Division I school in February, and now he's seeing you in maybe mid-July or early July, and he hasn't worked out for 4 or 5 months. That's not a shocker. I mean, I've heard this even in the NFL. Buddy Morris said that. He goes, once the season's over, he goes, you think that all these guys are kind of working out on their own and doing work. He goes, they show up not having worked out for several months. And he goes, understandably, they need some rest. They need to give their body a break. But he goes, a lot of them, they're just these big kids that don't have the discipline and need a coach at all times. And if they don't have a coach, then they will opt to do nothing. And we have, I see also those two sides of the spectrum here. We have a couple D1 kids coming back, D2 kids. They come back in the winter time. And it's amazing how some of them, like, they just don't work out unless they're at school. It's that's what I tell athletes. I go, that's your competition. They might have a better genetic, they might be a little more genetically gifted than you, more talented than you. But that old saying of the work, outworking the person who's got the talent, who doesn't want to do the work, there's a big thing to be said. What did you guys do? Did you have any guys just kind of walk off with all the running that you guys did and just?
Yeah, we probably lost 6-8 guys in the first 2 weeks.
Which was good.
Yeah, well, what type of commitment? I mean, if you can't make it that short a period of time.
Yep.
How about when things get really nasty?
Yeah.
Can you trust them? I can't trust them. So let's weed them out and make sure that anybody who doesn't want to do what we do here leaves. It's better that way. No hard feelings.
Yep.
You just can't roll with us.
Right.
We do things. You might go down the street, find another school, and you fit their style. But you ain't gonna fit our style. Let's shake hands and part ways because it's better for the program. It's better for the program, better for the kid. For us, they just part ways. If you don't want to do what we're doing, you gotta go.
One so-so kind of attitude can just destroy the energy of the weight room with 15, 20, I don't know how many guys you have at a time, but I've seen just one attitude, one poorly, motivated athlete, like suck the energy out of me and just interfere with the energy of the other coaches. And you saying, like, can I trust you during the tough times? When I was at Lehigh, I remember telling the guys, I said, I go, if I was to really put it in extreme words, I go, who could we trust to go to war with? Meaning, can I count on you when the chips are down? Do I want you in the foxhole with me? And I remember some of the guys, they kind of knew that they maybe were winning, but they weren't going all out. So they were just doing what was necessary to get by. And those guys, that kind of energy can really negatively impact a team.
Can destroy it. And
destroy it, yeah.
Going on, two things about that. Number one of the things I love about training football is the bigger groups. Okay, I like the fact that I got 30, 40, or 50 guys in a room because there's a lot of energy and a lot of accountability there.
Yep.
And my kind of motto is teach it, remind it, discipline it. And so I try to be very clear with what my expectations are for their execution and their behavior. And so I teach it to them. I remind them what I expect when I see them doing it wrong. After that, it's discipline, whether it be up, downs, or just get out, because I don't want things being done incorrectly in the room, because that is being observed by somebody. So if you're doing something wrong, whether it be from an execution standpoint or a behavioral standpoint, somebody else, if they don't see it being disciplined and they just see it happening, they think that's okay.
Yes.
And so I'm not going to allow that to go on in my way. You know, from a technical aspect, you know, I love Olympic lifts, but some people just can't do them. I mean,
yeah.
I've had 3 reconstructive surgeries on my wrist, and I don't do cleans very well. My elbow is down here. I look like this. And if you can't get it after the first couple of weeks, I get you off. Because if you're catching it like crap, I don't want people who are doing it right to see you doing it wrong and think, hey, if I just do it that way, I can do more weight.
It lowers the standard.
All of the bad stuff out.
Yes.
Out of the room, so there's no negative example.
Yep.
And I have no problem saying, hey, you don't want to do it all way, get out. Get out. I'll see you next week. You're out of the weight room. That's going to happen.
I've done that too. Like when it's amazing how sometimes the athlete will argue, and I tell people, I go, it's even more challenging as an independent strength coach, because that's how you're getting paid, by how many the kids that are in there. But I always tell people, and I tell the athletes, I go, I'll run this gym with 5 kids, 7 kids. I will burn this gym down before I allow you to kill the standard of excellence. And you are so right that if you let it slide, you know, I look at, and I know you had some experience, I think when you were student teaching, you spoke about being at the high school level, and you knew at that time, like, I'm not cut out to be with these kind of kids. And I've seen high school weight rooms, and kids will tell me, a kid's with us, he squats like 165 for a double or triple. And then the next week or 2 weeks later, he's like, we maxed out today. I squatted 335. And I tell him, I'm calling bullshit. There's no way you doubled your strength in a week or 2 weeks. You're either squatting all the way down or you're not. There's just no middle ground. It's either right or wrong, and you got to hold that standard. And you're right. Like, if you start kind of letting, just let it slip 1%, then that 1% extends to 10%. Like, you know, it just, you're right. It just like becomes this umbrella where everybody starts kind of doing it the shitty way, and that makes me nuts.
Can't let it happen. And the other thing I wanted to add on to about, you know, building trust in the weight room, we just have a kid transfer in here, a punter, okay? And our kickers and our punters and our snappers train with everybody else. Now, when it comes time to when they got to do a lot of kicking, we'll make some modifications to keep their hips strong.
Yep.
But he said at his former school, they didn't let the kickers train with the team. And I think that's foolish, personally, because I want to trust my kicker just as much as my quarterback.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a guy who kind of has the game in his hands more than most people.
Yes, it is crazy.
We won 2 games this year without scoring a touchdown, which means we kicked 4 field goals each game, right? So without scoring a touchdown, I gotta trust that guy, and I want him to trust us. And if me as an athlete haven't seen this guy, all I'm doing is hoping he's done his job. But when I know he's done his job and he knows he's done his job, there's a mutual respect and a mutual amount of trust, and we're all gonna ride or die together.
Yep.
And also, if he misses, I want to know that at least he's done his work, right? So I can console him at the end, and I can still trust him. Now, no one's happy when the kicker doesn't do his one job, but at least I know that he did his job outside of the year.
Right.
Outside of that kick. He missed that kick, but everything. So I'm going to put my guys, my kickers, in with my linemen and be like, hey, let's go. We're pushing prowlers today. Let's go.
I agree.
Because I want trust, 360 degrees.
I know a mutual friend of ours, I'm not going to mention his name, but he said years ago when he was coaching, he's also at a D1 program, he goes, our best football teams were when the quarterback trained with the linemen, and the quarterback wasn't saying, you know, or the running back wasn't like, I need to do speed and agility ladders. He said they all were squatting, benching, power cleaning, jumping, deadlifting. They weren't looking for all this specialized stuff. And he said it was a much stronger unit. You know, they were basically, you bleed together, you're ready to go to battle together. That there was a lot to be said with that.
For sure. I really believe in that the environment makes up most of what we do. And, you know, modifications need to be made. You know, when you get in season, you know, we run the triple option, so our quarterback is a running back. And, you know, one game he carried the ball 43 times and all downfield. Well, you know what? When he comes in on Monday, he's going to lift a little differently.
Right.
You know, but that's in season. And then you got other situations. We got to make him out. This guy can't do this because he's had 2 knee surgeries. Or he's
right.
So we're going to modify. But we're going to modify with his teammates, and what we modify with is going to be just as strenuous, just in a different way, so we can all see each other work and build that trust. And so modifications, there's no problem with having a quarterback or a lineman or a kicker doing some different stuff, but it's got to be in the presence of everybody else, and it can't be done in a special treatment kind of way. It has to be done in a necessary type of way.
Yeah.
He has to do this because of what he is required to do.
Yeah.
And so he'll do something different with you, in the trenches with you, and it might be harder. It's just different.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. People are just so easily duped nowadays with thinking that there has to be these massive individual like training programs where I always say, I haven't ran into a kid yet who's strong enough, fast enough, tough enough, explosive enough, and all those basics are what really get that job done.
For sure, for sure. I mean, last year, there were minute differences between our bigs and our skills. I mean, minute. And
I was going to ask that.
Because our fat guys, our big guys came in fat.
Yes.
And we needed to boost their tempo so they weren't so fat.
Yeah.
That was really the only difference between the bigs and the skills. And now moving on to year 2, we've made changes in the programs, not based on size, but based on individual need. But still, you fit in one of 3 categories. Your base, your intermediate, or your advanced. And our advanced stuff is still very simple.
Man.
It's very simple. And it's just doing some things that are a little bit different because you have extremely, like when you're 200 pounds and you squat ass to grass 475 pounds, you don't need to do the same thing as the 275 pounder who squats 315. One guy needs to work on getting a lot stronger.
Yeah.
The other guy needs to move weight a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But it's not like we have these crazy schemes. And there's so few people that are really that advanced. And, you know, something that gets me, and I really try not to speak ill of other programs because, to be perfectly honest, Coach, I'm not in your weight room. I'm not in Cal's weight room. I'm not in South Carolina's weight room. I don't know what's going on in those programs. So I try to speak ill about it. But what I do see through social media is I see a lot of people doing a lot of advanced stuff with a population that's going to get better if they just did goblet squats, push-ups, and bear crawls.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, if you want to do advanced stuff, make them prove it by them dominating level 1, and then dominate level 2, and then dominate level 3. Because then you got your freshmen doing advanced stuff. Well, how do they feel when they've done the same exact thing for 4 years?
That's right. They got to earn it.
I want them to earn their next level, and I want them to feel like their training is evolving year to year, even if it's just basics A to basics B to basics C. I want them to feel like they're doing something a little bit different, so they're more mentally engaged, they're supportive of what's going on, they're excited about what's going on. So our 3 levels of training is still all built around doing the simple things savagely well. And I'm never going to put a young cat in the advanced group, because why would I? He hasn't done the simple stuff.
And he hasn't earned his way into it, and then they don't respect. We actually have pretty much the same thing. We call it level 1, level 2, level 3, or beginner, intermediate, advanced. And my coaches know that, you know, a new athlete is starting off with all this beginner stuff. Even if a new kid comes into the gym, we don't like to let them just jump in with the advanced guys because they get arrogant that way. They don't earn. They don't have to fight for it. And it's just cool hearing this stuff. I did similar when I went to Lehigh. Is they had the brand new weight room, and the first thing I did was took them out of the weight room and trained them. Yeah, I took them to the other side of the mountain, and we basically did all body weight and like brawling drills. to get
Fantastic.
to get their mind in the right place. And I didn't want that to spend all of our time in the weight room and it's just perfect and it's air conditioned. To me, that stuff all threw me for a loop. You know, the perfect environment I knew would actually hurt them, so I made it imperfect.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm in Georgia right now. People don't think it's cold in Georgia. It's 26 degrees outside, and we ran this morning. And your ass better believe we were running outside.
It's good.
In the morning. Like I don't care if it's. I'm not going to make the kid. I'm not going to put the kid in harm's way, but I'm also going to be like, hey, if our priority every single year, according to our head coach, is being in great shape,
Yep.
we're going to run outside. Because next year we're going to Monmouth in New Jersey in November. Okay?
It'll be cold here.
It's going to be like 17 degrees.
I got to come watch that game. You guys will be coming up here?
Yeah, I don't know the date, but it's on the schedule.
Yes.
In New Jersey.
You never know out here.
I'm not going to have our guys' first exposure to cold being on game day.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes, and I got it out of one of those articles I read about Navy SEALs, and I don't know who wrote it, but it was, you don't rise to your competition. You fall to the level of your training.
Yeah, I heard Andy Stumpf had said that he was being interviewed on Power Athlete, and he's like, there's no rise to the occasion. You know, they're really, and when he said that, I was like, holy shit, so many teams, when they're kind of like not doing the work, they have to tell the kids, we got to rise to the occasion. But it's, I used to also say things like, you know, perform to your potential. And then I heard, and I think Andy said also, he's like, potential is just bullshit. He goes, the only thing that counts is what you do or what you don't do. And I started just thinking of these things saying, wow, like I'm BSing other people if I say rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your mental, physical preparation.
You can't call upon something you've never done before.
Truth.
That's why, train hard, win easy. I want to try to put them in adverse situations that when they get on the field, they feel they can handle it. A big part about training is confidence. You know that, coach. I mean, you, especially like when you design something that lasts 3-4 weeks. In week 1, they struggle. In week 2, they get better. Week 3, they get better. Week 4, they crush it. You say, guys, that's the same thing.
Yep.
That's harder than it was week 1. Look at you now. That's what, it's confidence. It's what have I done to create the body and the mind to be able to achieve the objective.
Yes.
And I've done it before. I can do it again.
It's there's so many ways like we could like play this, like I tell people, everybody does the squat, bench, and deadlift, but why does Westside Barbell, if we're squat, benching, and deadlifting, and so are they, why aren't we squatting, benching, 800 pounds? It's their atmosphere, it's all their little things that they do, it's the mindset, so it's raising the bar. It's, I remember you talking about extreme cold. You also need to deal with if maybe our teams from up in Jersey, they're not used to maybe the humidity and the heat of heading down south. So if they're always training in the air-conditioned, gym, that'll work against them. And I've done things like, I remember we do this warm-up, and in the summertime, I took the kids across the street and basically just did the warm-up out on the grass. My gym doesn't have air conditioning, but they were dying. And I had to stop them. I say, hey guys, this is a real important lesson here. We're not doing anything different. You all just did some sprints. You did some jumping. You did some partner hand walks. You did walking lunges. You did plyo push-ups. I go, is that anything different than what we do in the gym, literally, 100 yards away? They said no. I go, but you're letting this slight change in environment screw up your mindset. I go, that's why we're doing it, because you might be wrestling in a gym that they got the heat blasting and it's, early November and it's maybe 65 out and the windows aren't open and you're like, oh God, I'm so hot. You need to just get used to the unknowns and not let it bother you.
I agree, and our head coach is a big believer in that. And I work for a great guy who supports what I do and wants me to push them physically, mentally, emotionally, and get them prepared for that uncomfortable situation. We got 2 training blocks in the summer. I'm very lucky, Division I. You get them all summer. We had 80 guys here. It was fantastic. In June, we do all of our running in the morning. And in July, we do all of our running in the afternoon. And that's in the heat of Georgia. So I say it gets cold here. It gets hot as hell. On the turf, 97, 98 degrees plus the heat that's absorbed into the turf, and we do our running on there because that's what's uncomfortable, and I don't want football camp to be harder than training. It will be in its own way because you're playing football and you're in pads. You can't be with me, but I don't want you to be like, I haven't been in this heat all year. Now you're expecting me. Like, I'm gonna put you in that right away.
Yeah.
So you can maximize yourself when you're put in the heat again. Hell, we play our home games at 1 o'clock
In
September. It's 90 degrees.
Yeah, that's when
Gross.
1, 2, 3 o'clock is the peak of the heat in the sun.
Yeah. So
Yes.
we're not exposed to it.
Right. It's like another day at the office, I tell them.
For sure. Absolutely.
What's how did you kind of map out the progressions of your running, be it when you first got there and you're building a team, and compared to maybe when guys get a couple weeks off after the end of spring semester and come back? How do you look at running and kind of, I don't know, break it down and maximize it so it's a blend of, physical, mental, emotional?
Well, we got to understand that the time that the athletes are at the highest risk is the 2 weeks coming off of an extended break. I think there's been something like 23 or 24 deaths in the NCAA Division I football in the past 15 years through conditioning-related death.
Right.
And they're almost entirely sickle cell trait related, but they almost all happen within those 2 week periods. So you got to be smart when you get them back, especially when you're going into the heat. But so I decide, all right, what is our objective? Our objective is to be in great shape. Our objective is to get bigger. So then you know what your objective is. You know where you're trying to go. And they say, okay, well, in order to be in that type of fitness, we need to be able to do 4 agility stations at 4 minutes apiece. We need to be able to run 2 sets of 10 half gassers by the time we go into spring ball with a 3-minute rest in between the 2 halves. So if that's where I want to go, then I'm just going to back up 2 to 3 reps per week, and I'll start with shorter agility stations.
Reverse engineer it.
Yeah, you got to. If you don't know where you're going, the road to nowhere is paved with excuses, and planning to fail is failing to plan is planning to fail. You got to know where you're going, right? And so you know where you're going, and you just backtrack it. So example is, I'm trying to do 2 sets of 10 half gassers in week 4, week 3. So this week we did 2 sets of 6.
Yep.
And then next week we'll do 2 sets of 8. And the week after that we'll do 2 sets of 10. And we should be where we want to be. If I feel good about it, we'll stay right there. If I feel like we can keep going, we'll go again 2 sets of 12.
Yeah.
And we start with we end up wanting to do 3 agility stations at 5 minutes apiece. So today we did 3 agility stations at 4 minutes apiece.
Gotcha.
And the agility stations I tell my staff, because I have 2 graduate assistants and I have interns, we want to make sure they're executed this way. This is not a combine training session, which means they're not always going to have full rest. But at the same time, if they can't go fast, you're pushing them through it a little too quickly.
Yeah.
And we want them to be gassed, but they still need to have enough rest where they can be explosive.
Incomplete recovery, right?
Right, but
But not too much.
And enough where you can call upon some explosiveness.
Yes.
But not so much that you're dying. So, or that you're perfect. And then Wednesday, it's a little bit more combine specific. I mean, we're trying to really work on movement skills. So I'll say we expect great effort and great execution, and we'll reward their effort and execution with a little extra rest so they can be better at it.
Nice.
And so we know what our objective is for the day, and then we progress it forward. Next week we'll do longer agility stations, the week after do longer, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, attention to detail with athletes is, you're really parlaying it perfectly, because I think if you don't tell them what you want and you don't tell the coaches on staff exactly what's required, like kids nowadays more than ever, the past like 6 to 8 years with all these performance places, they don't know how to do anything without a coach telling them. And then I'm kind of, you get seer coaches, but I'm the same. Like our coaches, we email at the end of every night. This is how it went. This is what this guy's injured. This is what we're working around. I felt we were going too fast. Shorten that, and that constant communication. It's like it keeps the excellence going.
Absolutely. Communication. When any coach asks me, like the most important thing, I say over plan and over communicate.
Yes.
You can't do either way. You can't over plan. You can't over communicate. And Mike Tyson said it well, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, but so you're going to have to adapt. But if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, you can't adapt to anything.
Yeah.
So we discuss, we communicate, and let them know exactly what. I let my staff know exactly what needs to happen, and let the kids know exactly what needs to happen. And I'm big on accountability, and I'm big on discipline. I really am huge on it. But it's not the kids' fault to get it wrong if we didn't tell them how to do it right.
That's right.
So we tell them where they're running, what their target time is, and what way they need to turn when they turn. Every single time you hit the line, number one, you hit the line with your foot, or you hit the line with your hand. One of the two. They're told, and then you got to face this way. You got to face that way, and then you got to finish the rep hard through the finish line. If you don't do those things, you'll be disciplined. Period.
Yeah.
And that's 5 up downs, 10 up downs, bear crawl, whatever we tell you to do. But at least when they're disciplined, they've been told what's expected of them, so they're not like, well, where's this coming from?
Yes.
That's not the kid's fault.
I tell that to my coaches, especially with my newer coaches. I'll say, listen, sometimes, this kid, it's going to take time for him to turn the corner, but you have to be dialed in with everything you tell him. And that doesn't mean he's a bad kid or he's a bad listener. I go, sometimes physically, we're going to get into the weightlifting questions here in a second, but they can't move. they can't keep a flat back, or they're too weak to keep a flat back, or, we didn't take them through level 1. We skipped right to level 2. No good. So all of these detail-oriented things, you're right, is the ticket. I'll do things with my kids. Like if we've told them this is how you deadlift, or this is how you squat and bench, and they're half repping or they continue not to follow through, then maybe if they're doing it intentionally, I'll say, you don't get to touch a bar today. You're going all body weight today because you're not listening. You don't want to do it. Or the other thing is maybe we put them too far into the fire. They're not physically ready. And I tell my coach, I go, you got to find a way to communicate with that kid in a way that they understand that by you send everybody's back squatting, but this kid's got to do a kettlebell or a sandbag squat. You just say, hey, I want you to crush this for this many sets and reps. This is going to make you better, and we will get you to that squat, but you got to trust me. You got to go all in on this. You got to keep having them buy in, right?
And nothing earns the trust of a coach more than when you put them on a plan, they agree to it, and the plan leads where you tell it to go.
Yes.
Like if you say, if you do these things for these weeks, you'll be here and you'll be able to do this, and
Yep.
it works.
Yeah.
You've got them.
Yeah, they trust you.
They love you now. They'll do whatever the hell you tell them. But don't give them this false sense of achievement that you're able to do this thing. And I know it's tough. You're mentioning the private sector because you got to keep these guys coming to pay. That's how you make your living. A little easier when they're scholarship kids. I say, do it or get out of here.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm telling you, I know I remember when I was at Lehigh, it was I was like, this is so weird. I'm watching these kids and I'm not wondering if that kid's mom paid me or not. I was just focused on the training, which was great, like that, to be able to put that energy into it. But I still go by the thing of if they don't want to be here, I don't want you here. No matter how much money your parents are paying, it's just, a coach who's like yourself and myself, we're so fired up about excellence. We're just not into somebody who's going to half-ass it.
Can't stand it. Can't stand mediocrity, coach. I can't stand it.
Mediocrity is the death of greatness. That good enough. Let's talk about, I don't want to keep you too long. Let's talk a little bit about you're hired to be the head strength and conditioning coach for a brand new program. And how do you go about selecting equipment? How did even your brain start working with, this is what I need to build a powerful team? How did that look?
I got really lucky because I got to build my own room. And something that I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to train 60 kids in 60 minutes with no arguments for equipment. So when I designed the room, I was lucky enough to have the budget to do it. I mean, I count my blessings. I understand that I was in a unique situation, but every rack has all the same stuff. So every rack's got a bar, weight, bands, chains, 3 kettlebells, 3 medicine balls, and power blocks, or the adjustable dumbbells.
Organized.
So everybody can do everything. What I hate, and it's what you run into, and I'll run into it from now on, is you get these types of equipment or these pieces of equipment, but you only get 5. It's like, well, I got 40 guys in the room. What use is 5 of these things?
Yeah.
It ruins the flow of the room. I wanted to have tremendous organization and flow, so we had no wasted time. We could train at a fast tempo with attention to detail. So if we're dumbbell benching, everybody in the room can dumbbell bench. If we're squatting, everybody can squat. We're doing kettlebell swings, everybody can kettlebell swing. We're doing whatever we want to do, we can do it all at one time.
Yeah.
So that was a really big thing. And if you were to see my room, I got a leg press, I have a belt squat, and I have glute hams. Those are the only machines I have. Everything else is free weight. And that's not just me. That's people these days. The Nautilus era is over. You know the HIIT training, even though there's a lot of merit to a lot of it, it's really not what people do anymore. It's put a bar on your back, take it through a full range of motion, stand up with it fast. And so I wanted a free weight, open space with enough equipment to train everybody all at one time.
Yeah, that flow is, I did that, both of my gyms is like the same amount of 45s, 25s, 10s, and 5s are on each rack. And then when we're doing an exercise, they're in front of that rack. So you don't have to even go right or left to go to everything's in front of you. Everything's for that organization.
If it's not set up that way, it creates distraction.
I tell that to my coaches. You actually stress the kids out if they see maybe 6 45s on that rack, but there's only 4 there, and it actually messes them up.
It does. And you say, well, isn't our responsibility as coaches to teach these kids to be self-sufficient? Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
But really what our job is to do when they get in here is put them in an environment where they can maximize their potential. And if we're trying to push them physically, mentally, emotionally, going and finding another 10-pound plate is not pushing them physically, mentally, or emotionally.
Yeah.
Having it where it needs to be so they can put it on the bar and challenge themselves that way, that's what we're here to do.
It's just, the organization behind something. If you're organized, like, it just, it just takes things to a whole nother level. How do your guys, do they track numbers? Is it a software system, paper? How does that work? Or do they even track?
I do track, and I'm big on open sets. So we have a prescribed percentage that we're hitting 80, 85, 90, 95, whatever it is for that part of the year. And 3 weeks, we build it, we train it, we test it. We build it, we train it, we test it, build it, train it, test it. So if we're going for 5 to 8s on week 3, week 1 is going to be a base level 5 set to 5. The next one we're going to ascend to a couple really heavy 5s. And then we'll give them a chance to do what we call off the script. Hey, you're feeling good? You got last set, put whatever weight you want on it. For every rep that you miss, you have 50 squat jumps. So that gives them a little bit of accountability.
Yep.
I need to be within myself here so I don't miss a rep. How they do there determines what we open at. It should be about 85% if the card is right.
Yeah.
And that third week, I say, okay, get as many as you can. So they take the 85%, or if they did really well in week 2, we move it a little bit. And they get as many as they can. They write it down. I track. Hey, on July 24th, we took 85%. We opened it. He got it for 9 reps. That means he's stronger than he was.
Yeah.
Right. And that new number, when you do that calculation for the 1 rep max, that's the number we use for the next set of percentages.
Yeah.
And that's what we do for bench and squat. Clean. It's more about what your technique is allowing.
Yes.
What your speed is allowing. I'm kind of gotten a little bit away from percentages with cleans just because some kids are so bad, some kids are really good, and I don't really. My problem with percentage-based training is that sometimes it can limit what you're trying to do that day.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting more and more away from it and doing more of what we call those off-the-script sets, where
yes.
It's like, hey, feel good, put weight on, but if you miss a rep, you're out.
I do the same thing because I try to we basically assess the kids through the warm-up, verbally, non-verbally. What if I'm telling you're going at 95%, but like the next day, the day before, like your girlfriend broke up with you. At the college level also, I don't know if you have it now, but I remember when Joe Ken was at Louisville, he's like, listen, man, being at the college level, he's like, you think it's easy? He's like, sometimes these like 19, 21-year-old kids, they're fathers. They got kids, and they're, baby's mama don't want to talk to me. He's like, dude, like, tell me. I was like, holy crap. Like, they're dealing with so many things, and we are too. So we kind of give them a rep range to shoot for versus saying this is the percent, because if I undershoot the percent, but they want to kill it, then I'm messing that up too. So there's a lot of auto-regulation.
That's really, coach, that's where I'm at right now with my program. I'm looking at my program right here, and APRE you know, and the different variations that Mark Watts kind of extrapolated from the original APRE. That's what we're going for, because I felt like,
What's that? The perceived rate of exertion?
yeah, well, the autoregulatory progressive resistant exercise, I think that's the
Yep.
scientific term.
Yep.
But basically, I give you a percentage, and you build up and you get it for as many as you can. And then how you do on that will determine what you do for your next set. And what
Yeah.
you do there will determine what you do for your next set.
Yep.
So your max today might be 315. Tomorrow it might be, next week it might be 295. The week after it might be 345.
Yeah.
Sleep, because of stress, because of
Yeah.
whatever. And I felt like I was robbing kids of good days when they were being held accountable only to percentages.
Me too. I used to do was a very kind of rigid, and I think maybe some newer coaches out there might be, they're either too rigid or too unorganized. So they have to find that middle ground to work with that autoregulation. And sometimes the bar weight's not going to go heavier. You're going to clean 135 all month, but it's faster. The technique is better. And that's a sign of more strength, more coordination, improved skill. So that's also something like, it's just cool to hear that you guys are dialed in. What's are you guys doing full body workouts, upper, lower? How does it work?
So I've got I told you my 3 skill groupings. We've got infantry, armor, and airborne.
That's awesome.
And so our infantry is like our basic, and it's a fire and maneuver based training. So it's total body, a lot of heavy pairings, like they do.
Yes.
They're pairing, like the armor is tanks. They're getting big, beefcake. It's codenamed beefcake. And so
love it.
They're doing their auxiliaries that they're doing in between major lifts are very low intensity. It's just band external rotation,
Yes.
face pulls, hip flexor stretch. Where the infantry is more, they're doing like a heavy push and a heavy pull, fire maneuver.
Gotcha.
Fire maneuver.
Yeah.
And so the infantry is doing 4 total body lifts a week. And really that's 3 total body lifts, and Friday is just an all-out assault on their soul. It ends with prowlers, and the font is bloody. It's great. And then, but the 2 more advanced groups are upper, lower.
Yeah, I find that
by design.
Right, when they get more advanced, you give them that little extra recovery because they're more intense. Also, even if I'm doing an upper day, I want my guys on sleds. If it's a lower day, I'm sneaking in some push-ups and recline rows and all that pull parts like what you're doing. Is that how you guys sneak in your mobility? Do you have kids show up early or you sneak it in?
No. We do our mobility during our warm-up, but, our warm-up's got to be fast.
Yep.
I do bullet flying warm-ups, meaning like we're on a clock and we're trying to get it done. Fast tempo, station-based. The majority of our mobility is done in between sets. So it's like you're doing a squat paired with a 30-second each leg couch stretch. With the back.
That's good. Yes. Love it.
Or you're doing your T-spine rotation, extension stuff in between sets of bench. Now we'll touch on all those things during a warm-up. They're doing their lateral lunges. They're doing their single leg RDLs. They're doing their quad pulls, just to loosen everything up before they go into the actual movements.
Yep.
But we're doing our real mobility stuff in between sets because that keeps the guys mentally engaged. It allows us to do more in less time. And my coaches are there to coach it up.
Active, yeah. So they're just, it's like they're always working, even if it's just that, even if it's mobility. Yeah. Yes, I like to do that too. Let's close out. I know you got to go. One thing I'm proud of is that when we send kids to a university, I know that it helps that strength coach, meaning you're not getting, I remember Buddy Morris saying, he's like, you think you're at the D1 level and everybody knows everything. He's like, these kids don't know how to squat. They don't, you're teaching them how to do a bodyweight squat. And I had to do that when I went to Lehigh. I assumed that I'm going to this D1 school. And I remember doing clean pulls on day 1. And then more than half the guys were round backing. And I was like, done. Yeah. Nobody's deadlifting. Get off the bar. And I had to go and just do exactly what I do with a new athlete who might be 14 years old. These guys were just very high skilled. So if you were able to give advice to other high school, the football coaches tend to want to run the weight room. It's very hard for us to really, I always tell independent coaches, they're like, I keep contacting the local high school football coach. I go, they tend to not want to work with an independent coach. What message would you have with all your experiences and even, you were at the Citadel, now you're at Kennesaw. So it's like, what's the message you would give to a football coach or any high school strength coach who's in the schools that is going to better prepare them for high school and maybe even for future D3, D2, D1 football?
Oh, you got to understand, and you've said it 1,000 times, so have I, it's about the basics. If they can't move right, if they can't hold tension, if they can't brace themselves, then they're not going to be able to advance. And we go to these presentations at conferences, and the coach is obviously showing the best stuff that they do, which means it's the stuff that they're doing with their most advanced population. That doesn't mean that's the best thing for you. So, I am a huge fan of triphasic training, Cal Dietz's book, but that's advanced. That's advanced stuff, and high school juniors don't need to be doing that. And college freshmen, unless they're really elite lifters because they love the weight room, they don't need to be doing that. I mean, we're doing that with our JUCO kids and a couple sophomores because they were coached really well in high school. So stick to the basics. Teach your kids to move right. Teach your kids to create tension and move through a full range of motion, and teach them to embrace the process. And really dominate what they're doing before they move on to the next thing. Don't get this delusion that doing the advanced stuff is what's going to separate you from the next team, because it's how you go about your business and the standard of which you uphold that's going to separate you, not exactly what you're doing. I really believe that. And I can see with the kids, Georgia High School strength and conditioning is very good, way better than where I've been in the past. It's fantastic. But you still got some coaches who are still pushing. Give me heavier, give me bands, give me chains. I saw this thing on these guys, they do these. I'm like, man, dynamic effort is meant for elite lifters.
Yes.
If you can't naturally, your neural communication needs to be elite in order to really get any type of benefit out of dynamic effort squats. Let's not be doing that. You don't need to be doing triphasic. You don't need to be there's a lot of stuff that works, and you got to start at the bottom and then progress from there. So I know I'm going all over the place with that, but the basics, not what you do, how you do it, great discipline, great work ethic, great tension, great depth. That's what's going to lead your team to be successful. And, keep it simple and just do it better than everybody else.
What's that? Let's finish with that quote that you had about doing the basics savagely well. What's that?
Do the simple things savagely well.
That's the best. So, everybody listening out there, we're with Jim Kiritsy at Kennesaw State. If you want to do an interview with him, just Google Kennesaw State football. I think your contact info is on there. And are you speaking at any conferences coming up?
No, I'm not speaking anything anytime soon. So if anybody has any questions, just find me online, shoot me an email, find me on Facebook.
Awesome.
Follow us on Instagram, KSU FB Strength.
It's great, yeah.
See what we're about, because we're proud of our program. We've got a long way to go, but our kids work hard, and it's good to share the program. Have people see
you've got YouTube channel, the videos of you guys training, the Instagram, so there's a lot for people to learn. And I'll link that up to everybody listening on the blog at zachevanesh.com, undergroundstrength.tv. Same thing. I'll link all that stuff up so they could start following you and reach out to you, and people could learn from you. It's just, the standard of excellence is awesome. And I've been learning from Jim since we met. I think, 2 or 3 years. It goes fast.
2012.
Yeah, at Lehigh when you were showing.
Coach, I've been following you a lot longer than you've been following me. Let me tell you that.
It's just the being an independent strength coach has those things like you've got to constantly educate and put out your information. So I always tell people, I go, trust me, my preference is not to spend 3 hours a day with all the blogging and all this stuff. I'm a coach. I love being in that weight room or just training the guys. And, there's the beauty behind just coaching. That's my true love. So you guys are busy doing all the training, which is where every independent strength coach wants to be anyway, just training. So awesome, man. It's been great, Jim. Congratulations also at being at Kennesaw and just future success there. So, and thanks to everybody for listening to us.
All right. Thanks a lot, Zach. I appreciate it.